Welcome to the Massimo Show.
But you mentioned something there that I want to segue to, and that is about this claustrophobia. And this woman, after 2 calls, she quit. She said, I can't do it anymore. I'm going to quit. In your book, you also talk about an episode where you quit, which I found extremely refreshing to think, oh my goodness, this fighter pilot, this amazing person that we rely on for our freedom, quit. And so you put it out there. So tell us a little about that episode while you quit. And let's talk a little bit about that claustrophobia.
Are you saying this young lady who you were coaching, she eventually quit? She didn't want to do the cold?
No. After 2 calls, she said she's going to quit because she was afraid she'd get rejected because she had 2 meetings. So she just quit and stopped calling.
Is she quitting her job as well?
No. She just quit for the day. But look, there's no doubt that out there in the workforce, whoever you all do, the listeners, there are times you just quit. You just say, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to make the calls anymore. I'm not going to do the marketing. I'm going to leave for the day. I'm having a bad day. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to quit. Hopefully not in the long term, but just in the short term.
Right. So here's the point. I appreciate you sharing that example. I have a saying, quitters never win, but winners sometimes quit. And there's a follow-on quote to that. You have to quit with honor. So let me share with the folks, I struggle with claustrophobia as a fighter pilot. I almost died in a scuba diving accident 3 years of my 11-year active duty flying career. And long story short, it brought out this latent claustrophobia that I never thought I had. I basically had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, not from a combat mission, but from almost dying scuba diving. So instead of being 30 feet under the water having a panic attack, now I was finding myself at 30,000 feet with a mask on in this tiny enclosed space, having these panic attacks, which was brought on due to that PTSD I experienced scuba diving. Now, I didn't quit. I talk about passion being greater than the fear, number one, but it was also my sense of responsibility. The fact that I had wings on my chest, that when I was flying, it was 8-hour night combat missions, that I had other men and women who were depending on me to go out and do my damn job and protect them. That ego, that sense of responsibility, the fact that I didn't want to be embarrassed and be the quitter, and the fact that, like I said, others needed me, that kept me in the cockpit, and it pushed me to get more and more used to being in those situations, and my claustrophobia, my fear, my anxiety eventually diminished, didn't go away. Your fears and anxieties will never go away. They will just be covered up by your strength, your resilience, your health and fitness, your confidence, your mindset, your preparation. Those shield the fear missiles. The missiles don't go away. You just got an iron shield of confidence that's a byproduct of your preparation and mindset and all those other things, right? I can go into this for hours, but the sense of responsibility helped me stay in the cockpit and also gave me some great experience. And so my fears, my anxieties, my challenges were gifts for me to deal with my changes, but also to be the example through my character, through my stories, through my quote unquote wisdom, right? Whatever you call it, for my children, for my coworker, Amy, who's sitting next door, for my buddies who are dealing with some health challenges, because I have been in that crucible. So my point for you, and then we're going to get back to the quitting thing, is realize that those challenges and issues that you're going through in your business and all the cursory things that are part of it aren't necessarily just for you to grow. Think about who can learn from your example, your mentorship and coaching, your wingmanship, right? And say, man, this really sucks right now. I am not enjoying this, but this is going to be great fodder of information and experience to share with my son or daughter, or my new wingman who I'm coaching, who hopefully will run my business one day, or perhaps my buddy who's going through a drinking problem right now, or a divorce, or who's thinking of starting his own company after leaving so-and-so company, for 10 years. So that example, those challenges and tribulations are for other people too, if you truly care about others and want to help others, which is a higher level of thinking in life as opposed to surviving just to put food on your table. So think about that, listeners, on who needs you to succeed and what example you can set, because those failures are great content for other people to learn from and for you to coach and mentor. So I never quit on a combat mission because it was combat. People needed me. Man, I sucked it up. And by the way, I became Instructor Pilot of the Year, Flight Leader of the Quarter. I had all these awards, despite the fact that I was dealing with all this crap going on in my head, in my life, those missiles. So you, listener, or the people who are part of your team, they may have some quote unquote claustrophobic panic attacks going on in their lives. Are they still able to deal with them and still execute and still fly their jet, their job, right? Because a lot of people go through it, right? A lot of the issues that go on in our lives may have nothing to do with work. It may have to do with some other things going on. So think about that as you're getting to know your teammates and you're building relationships with your wingmen. Know what's going on in their life and how you can potentially support them. But it's ultimately how we act despite the challenges, despite the physical or mental issues that may be going on. Ultimately, it's about our performance. And there are some great, successful people out there. We all know them. We can name them who have issues and challenges, but are still able to kick some butt, right? And maybe that's you, right? So my claustrophobia was always there. I was always able to break through it. It got easier and easier and easier. Some missions were tougher than others, but the biggest challenge in my life came when I was flying on a training mission, not a combat mission where it was war and life and death. This was a mission where we were ferrying, flying back 6 F-16s from Saudi Arabia after a combat deployment to South Carolina, down the street from where you live, Rod. And so we were flying from Saudi Arabia to Spain and then Spain to the United States. And they asked for volunteers out of the 12 pilots present. Who wants to fly the F-16 back and ferry it home? And I'm like, hey, I know I'm going to fly to Spain, which is 7 or 8 hours. And then I'm going to fly from Spain to the U.S. And what's in between Spain and the United States, Rod?
Is it a stream or is it a lake or it's something rather large? I know that.
The Atlantic Ocean, right? So no runways, no emergency landing strips in the Atlantic Ocean. You're up there. And so I said, you know what? I know this is going to be a challenge for me, but yes, I am raising my right hand and I'm going to suck it up. I'm going to face my fears and I'm going to do this. Put me in, coach. I'm ready. And so first leg of the trip, flying to Spain, 7, 8 hours. It was kind of challenging that we had the Mediterranean Sea to fly over. It wasn't too bad. A little bit of challenge, a little anxiety, but I landed. I'm like, okay, I did it. 2 days off in Seville, Spain, Sevilla, right? We're sipping wine and having tapas and just traveling around. It was great. And so we had that for 2 days. And guess what's going through my mind those 2 days, Rod? What's going through my mind?
A little transcontinental flight over a little lake, I guess.
Here we go. Okay. The crap's going to hit the fan here. Let's see how courageous you are, Waldo. You flew these 7 or 8 hour night combat missions. Are you going to be able to fly over the Atlantic Ocean, Mr. Fighter Pilot, Mr. Courage Monger, right? And so that whole night before the mission, I barely slept, pondering the what ifs. What if I have a panic attack and need to land? What if I bail out of the aircraft over the Atlantic? All those what ifs, right? We've all been there. Didn't sleep. Got up the next morning with a terrible headache. I'm panicked during the mission briefing. I'm barely listening. All I'm thinking about is this flight. I go into the jet. We crank up the engines. And I say to myself, what the heck am I doing? I'm going to put my life on the line. I'm going to put the safety of my formation on the line because if I bail out, if something happens to me, it's going to mess everything up. This isn't war. This isn't life or death. Must I go on this mission, or is it just my ego getting in the way and try to prove to myself that I could do this? And I said, as bad as it sounds, as embarrassed as I would be, I need to call out on the radio and abort this flight and get somebody else in this aircraft and fly. And I called out on the radio and said to the flight lead, 2's aborting. I was number 2 out of the 6 guys in the flight. And he's like, why? State reason. I said, didn't sleep the night before. I feel like crap. I'm just not mentally ready, which was true. I didn't tell him I was claustrophobic, but everything else was true. And so we shut him down. We met back at the briefing room. We found another pilot to do the jet. And 3.5 hours later, they were back in the air. Cost some taxpayer money while the tankers are waiting for us over the Atlantic, right? It messed some things up. But it wasn't the end of the world. We got somebody else in there. Here's my point. No one gave me crap about it. Everybody understood. They were disappointed. But hey, Waldo, you did the right thing. And they got over it. But it took me years to get over the fact that I gave in to my fear. I quit, really for the first time in my life. I never quit on anything. I quit in that mission. And the lesson that I learned was this. And the lesson that I want you to learn is this, is that you can't fly every mission. You can't be Hercules Superman or superhero on every mission. There are times in your life where you're going to need to say to yourself, it's time for me to quit, to hang up the phone, to wait another day for the clouds to dissipate and the turbulence to go away, and then get back in the cockpit and do it again. But quitting with honor means, did you give it your all? Did you seek out the best? Were you prepared? Are you in a situation that if you quit, others are going to be truly negatively impacted by your failure? Are you so selfish in quitting that others will suffer because of it? That is not quitting with honor. But if you've thought about all those, if no one desperately needs you, if it's not life or death, if it's just your ego, then quit. But do it after you put in the effort and time to do the right thing. And, if you back a dog into a corner and they have no way to escape, what's going to happen? They're going to jump and attack. If you back somebody else into a corner, there's people out there who are committing suicide, who are massively depressed because they won't quit. They don't have an option to quit. And so I want you to realize that it's okay to quit, but do it with honor. Ask for help. Prepare. Try something new. You had to quit your job. If you're an entrepreneur, I guarantee there are successful people here with a financial company or another group of individuals and maybe doing very well, successful, making a lot of money. And you had to quit that job. You had to quit something in order to start something else as well. So it's okay to quit. Don't buy into the philosophy of never quit. Sometimes quitting is the best possible thing you can do in order to get back into the cockpit and fly a mission that you believe in, that you're passionate about. And that's going to help build more character and courage.
I couldn't agree with you more. And thank you for putting it in that context, because to translate you quitting a mission and then put it forth where it is, most of the time for us as entrepreneurs, independent workers, it's more ego than life and death. It just is. And we may think what we're doing is quitting something is a life and death. I remember I actually did not show up to a major speech in New York City of all places, because I was on death's door as far as being sick. At least I felt that way. And it killed me. My ego was killing me to not go. I'm pleased, put in the context of listeners, you know what? Life went on. I didn't show up, but I did quit with honor, and they got what they needed. But you know what? The business went on. Life does go on when you sometimes need to not do certain things. But look, I know your time is valuable, Waldo. I got 2 more questions for you. One thing, we know a story, because I know listeners are going to love these stories, but they're lessons. This lesson I really enjoyed from the book. And I find this ironic, this story, because it has to do with a mechanic. And your father was a mechanic, so it's almost going full circle here. And in our world, we work and depend on other people. And I'm sure some of you, and I have myself, I'm guilty of it, have not been as respectful for what maybe other teammates or folks that I think should be supporting my efforts, as I could be. And I've learned from those lessons. And Waldo, you shared a story about someone that you weren't probably as respectful to, one of the mechanics, and what lessons you learned from that. So can you share that story?
Sure thing. So one of my last missions I flew in the military, long story short, I cranked up the engine. It was shorted fuel, which would put me at a disadvantage. It wasn't a big deal, but enough to cut the mission short. And we were doing an air-to-air training mission. I needed as much fuel as possible, especially if I was going afterburner and throwing fuel out the back of that aircraft through the much-needed thrust. And I knew there were 500 reasons why the jet may have been shorted, because it was relatively common. But I blamed the crew chief. I chewed out that crew chief for slacking off and not double checking the gauges. And I cursed at him. I was ticked off, disrespectful. I was just hardcore, right? And a lot of fighter pilots are hardcore. And I'm a New Yorker, in case you can tell from my accent. I could just be brutal, right? And I just know how I am. I'm a lot different now. But when I was 28 years old or 32 years old, I just didn't have that type of quote unquote relationship and communication training. So I got back from the mission. Fuel wound up not being a factor, wound up beating the heck out of the enemy. I was feeling like King Kong. And I noticed my commander was waiting for me on the tarmac as I taxied into the hangar. Now, in the Air Force, when your boss, your commander, waited for you at the end of a mission, it normally meant something was wrong at home. And I thought about my twin brother. Was he sick? Well, my parents in the hospital. And I jumped onto the tarmac and he said, "Come with me." And I knew it had nothing to do with my family. And he basically said, "Look, Walter, I heard about the conversation that you had with your crew chief. I heard about the choice words that you shared with him. I said, yeah, okay. And he said, you know how long that young kid was working on your plane? You know what he had to go through to make sure that the jet was mission ready and fueled up and the weapon systems was going well? I said, of course I do, sir. And he said, no, you don't. You don't know a damn thing. He was ticked off at me, and rightly so. And so what he said, I want you to go out and walk the flight line at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning and walk it with these young kids to see what they go through, the sweat and hard work that they do, so you can do the coolest job in the world and fly the jet. Fly an F-16, be a fighter pilot. And so that next morning I got up and I walked the flight line with these young kids and did inspections of the fuel tanks and changed tires and sweat with them. I'd never worked so hard in my life. Honestly, it was brutal. And I didn't have a clue what these kids did at the end of the day. And before that, I didn't care, because as far as I was concerned, I was the captain. I was the fighter pilot. They were enlisted technicians who worked for me. I was cocky, had a big fighter pilot ego, and I was wrong. And so what I learned ultimately was that everything I did in the air, up in the sky, had everything to do with what they did down on the ground, the hard work and attention to detail, albeit it might not have been perfect. And I went out and thanked the crew chiefs, and I told them I appreciated them, and worked on building that relationship with those unsung heroes who were responsible for making sure my jet was safely prepared for takeoff and to be mission ready. And what I learned from that is, hey, there are a lot of other people in our lives who may be quote unquote technicians or non-fighter pilots or administrators or IT professionals or contracts folks or people answering our phones who may not be on the front line like we are, the flight leads of and fighter pilots of our business, but nonetheless, they truly are helping the mission, tightening down the rivets, fueling the jet. And so it's always about, for me, building appreciation with those unsung heroes and saying thank you and noticing the good that they do and calling them on the phone and walking their flight line and appreciating all the different things that they do. And I think in business, our independent contractors, our accountants, our vendors, the people who help us out, our spouse, our partners, the people who are just really out there behind the scenes helping us do our job, that is what really creates what I call a check six culture, where you have each other's back, where you appreciate each other, and where you're all willing to put in the hard work necessary to fly, fight, and win for your company and for your team.
Check six culture. Well, I'm sorry, Waldo, you just gave me another question I had to ask. I believe I understand what that means. Check six, check your six. But can you just expand that a little bit?
This is a really important context, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, never flying solo. So if you can picture yourself strapped into a cockpit, barely able to move in this tiny cockpit with a helmet and mask on, it's impossible for you, the flight lead, to see your most vulnerable position behind you. You can see out front and to your left and right, but guess where the threat's coming, where the enemy's coming? They're coming at your 6 o'clock behind you. And you don't know even if you're leaking fuel or on fire. But if you have a wingman or a wingmam, at your left, at your 9 o'clock position, or your right 3 o'clock position, if you can picture the positions on a clock, it's easier for them to look over their shoulder and see your 6 o'clock, your blind spot. And it's a lot easier for you to look over their blind spots, their 6 o'clock, and call out threats and missiles and engine fires to them. So this concept of checking six is what creates a culture of mutual support, calling out the blind spots, telling when the missile's coming, telling each other often what you need to hear and not what you want to hear, risking sometimes the relationship to do the right thing, to grab the keys from your wingman, a friend who, if they've been drinking too much and are about to drive, to have the tough conversation with somebody who you care about, to say, look, you need to work on your health and fitness. There's a blind spot here you need to see, your relationships, how you're communicating, right? And so those wingmen, and I mentioned this in the beginning, are the type of folks you want in your life who are going to tell you when you're wrong and give you the feedback on growth, on cutting costs, on leveraging new technology, and how to be a better communicator and build a better business in your life. So find those folks who have your back. Don't hang out with just yay sayers who are going to accept you for everything that you do. Don't hang out with naysayers, but don't hang out with yay sayers who yes you to death. Find the folks in your life, your wingmen, be it a mastermind or relationships that you're building, who have the courage to really have your back, who care enough about you. And that takes time. The biggest message I can share with folks listening to this podcast today is invest in that. Go out, volunteer at some nonprofits, go to association events, volunteer to be on the board, be the type of person that's giving their wings away, that's a trusted resource in your community and your business world. And you'll nurture those relationships with folks who will call on you for help, perhaps pay you for your services, refer you, and you'll have other folks in your life who, when God forbid those missiles come for you, you'll be able to say, man, I put in the work to build these relationships. Now I need somebody to help me out, to give me an insight. And also somebody that I can call who I can celebrate with. And you're the type of guy, Rod, getting to know you the last couple of years, and we invested in a mastermind group together, you're the type of guy, not only I would call for help, but somebody when life's going great, I want to call you, right? Hey, Rod, just kick some butt today. I got a brand new website. Just closed this big deal, right? Think about those folks who can celebrate with you as well. It's not all about the missiles. It's all about the joy and blessings we get from being Top Gun entrepreneurs, getting shot at sometimes, but also taking out some targets and kicking some butt when we need to.
You're absolutely correct. And one of the blessings I have is certainly your friendship. And Waldo, I got to end this by sharing with you that I'm holding something, and I want you to tell us the significance of what I'm holding. I'm going to describe it for you, and hopefully you know what it is, because it's something you shared with me in Toronto. And there are words on it that say prepare, engage, commit, trust, teamwork. And finally, of course, what I love, push it up. What am I holding, and what does the push it up mean?
So you're holding what's called a challenge coin. And they're called challenge coins in the military. Every fighter squadron has its own unique customized coin that has core values and the mascot, and they're always custom. And you have to carry these coins on you 24/7 because you never know when your wingman or wingman's going to call you to go to battle. And so they're called challenge coins because if you're hanging out at the squadron, at lunch, at the gym, at the bar, at dinner, and your buddy slaps down that coin and says, coin check, that's a challenge, meaning you've got 10 seconds to pull out your coin, slap it on the table to show them that you're mission ready and that you're their wingman, that they can depend on you. Now, what happens if you don't have the coin? You're buying drinks or lunch or given to a charity, etc. There's a consequence when you're not mission ready, when you're not their wingman in position ready to fly. But if you do have the coin, or the people that you're hanging out with do have the coin, then whoever challenged them initially, then they owe everyone else a round of drinks or lunch or a charity. So there's always a consequence, and it's a great way to build a esprit de corps and let everybody know. On moment's notice, many times the missiles and challenges are going to come, and we're going to need to strap in and fly and push up the throttle and dodge those missiles. So that coin is just a constant reminder of camaraderie and teamwork and the core values of commitment, trust, preparation, and engagement. And the last thing on there, like you mentioned, was push it up. And push it up is what we say to each other when we need to add power, need to go faster, and also when we're committing on the target, committing on the enemy, where it's go time, where we cross the forward edge of the battle area, we put our switches to master arm hot, meaning things are coming off the aircraft, and we push up that throttle and we break the speed of sound and we go after it. And that's an analogy to life. When you hear your wingmen call out the words commit, commit, that's what we say in combat. It's time to push it up. And push it up is what I hope you'll all do when you hear your customers, your coworkers, your family members and loved ones say commit, commit, time to push it up. And to do that with confidence means you're prepared, means you faced your fears. Doesn't mean you're fearless. It means you're facing your fears. Anybody that says fearlessness is full of crap, I don't want you to listen to them because they're not human. Your humanity means you must be afraid. But courage says, I'm staying in the cockpit. I'm responsible. I'm prepared. I've got teammates that have my back that I can call to for help. I am going at it. And when you do that as a Top Gun fighter pilot, as a peak performing individual, when you understand what you're fighting for, when you love what you do, when there's meaning behind the mission, and you have somebody to come home to hug, and relationships in your life that mean something, that is what being a Top Gun wingman is all about. And that's what I hope for everyone listening to this podcast, and what I continue to hope for you, my wingman and friend, Rod Santomassimo.
Well, thank you, Waldo. Hey, look, I can't get enough of Waldo. I know more folks are saying that as well. So give us where can we go? Where can we get more Waldo wing tips? Where can we get more information? Help us out. Share with us where we can get more of you.
A couple things. If you go to my website, yourwingman.com, yourwingman.com, or Google Waldo Waldman Wingman, you'll see a bunch of resources. My website's got a ton of videos. You can sign up on a newsletter there, etc. I'm at Waldo Waldman on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. I post stuff almost every day. If you have a question or comment, send me a note there, or even email me at info@yourwingman.com, info@yourwingman.com. I'd be happy to help you in any way I can. And then also, I've got a free video series. If you want to participate, get 5 videos from me talking about commitment and excellence and teamwork in your inbox every single day for a week. If you want to get that, best way to get it is if you take out your mobile phone, okay, and text the word Top Gun, one word, by the way, don't separate them. It's Top Gun to the number 44222. Text Top Gun, one word, to 44222. Put your email in. You'll get a video series from me. You'll also get some links to my social media and some other resources. And that's a great way to get in touch and get more of my juice, get more of my firepower.
Well, it just dawned on me after all these years of knowing you, something I've never put together. I should have asked you, and we'll ask in a different episode where Waldo came from. But there is a book, of course. Is it Where's Waldo? Is that the book? Is that correct?
Where's Waldo? Yep, the little guy in the red and whites.
And you speak around the world. So if I'm wondering where's Waldo, where are you going to be next?
All right, so next week I'm going to be in Fort Lauderdale. I just came back from the Poconos working for a healthcare company, and then where was I? In Baltimore working for another healthcare company. Next week I'm going to be in Florida working with Miracle Ear. You know Miracle Ear? You see those commercials?
Sure.
Yeah, a bunch of entrepreneurs. They have retail centers and folks who are out there helping folks who have some hearing issues and challenges. And their vendor suppliers are going to be there, their peers, their folks who are dodging the missiles, dealing with Costco and all their big competitors. So that's where I'll be. And then after that, I'm going to be back at your hometown in Greece on vacation.
I'm not, my hometown's in Italy, my friend.
Oh, I thought you were Greek.
No, I'm Italian. Actually, I'm half Italian, half Puerto Rican. So there you go.
Oh, don't mess with you. Yeah, and I speak all over, like I said, for entrepreneurs and franchises and financial services and Denver Broncos and all over the place. And if anybody needs a wingman to fly on them, hey, you know how to find me. So,
okay, my friend, I can't thank you enough. I know I will continue to push it up myself because of you and your guidance and your motivation. And I know you do the same for our listeners. So thank you again for not only for your time with us today, but certainly we're blessed for your service with the Air Force and what you've done for us and for our country. So thank you so much, my friend.
You got it, Rod. God bless you as well.
Take care.
If you've enjoyed this great interview with Lieutenant Colonel Robert Waldman, you can find out more about Waldo at yourwingman.com. I'm Rod Santomassimo, and thanks for joining me here on The Massimo Show. For more information about the Massimo Group, please check out Massimo, that's MASSIMO.coach. Again, that's Massimo.coach. We'll talk to you soon.